All right, so thanks again for joining us, folks. My name is Malcolm McLean, and I'm our Director of Urban Agriculture and Food Initiatives at Greater Newark Conservancy. Today, we're talking about the Plot of Fresh mini grant program, a super exciting opportunity. I'm just going to go through essentially the different components of the grant application and give folks the ability to ask questions. I'm not able to see the chat, so if folks want to chime in, feel free to unmute yourselves, or at the end, I will answer all questions that I have. But feel free to just jump in if you need to. All right, so a little bit of background about the Conservancy. So excitingly, we just got a new executive director, Natasha Dyer. She joined us back in June, coming from Newark Trust for Education. So Natasha's great. There will be some sessions in the future for folks to be able to get to meet her. But just a little background about the Conservancy. We're excitingly moving in a new direction. And with that direction comes a new mission and vision. So I'll just read it very quickly. So the mission of Greater Newark Conservancy is to foster collaboration in our community at the intersection of environmental, food, and racial justice in order to promote the health and well-being of all Newark residents. And we envision that Newark and its surrounding communities will have universal and equitable access to nutritious food in a green, resilient, sustainable, and healthy urban environment for all those who live, work, and recreate here. So this grant opportunity is just going right in line with our mission, with making it so that folks have funds and other resources to be able to, create Newark or build Newark or continue to build Newark into a place where folks have access to fresh food year round and pretty consistently. Before we get into our specific mini grant program, just want to let you all know that this grant is a part of the larger Nourishing Newark grant opportunity that went out this past February. And in particular, we're focusing on the growing and urban agriculture focus area of the Nourishing Newark community grants program. There are 3 different program areas, all having to do with growing agriculture, connecting folks with food. We're just zeroing in on the growing and urban agriculture focus area, which aims to, 1, expand or significantly improve the production of fresh and healthy food for community-based growers, urban farmers, and other gardeners in Newark. And then right after they have increased that production or improved that production, to make that food available to families experiencing food insecurity, either directly on that site or through partnerships with other institutions that either give out food for free or provide low-cost distribution avenues for people to be able to access food. So that's the large Nourishing Newark grant, which is funding this mini grant program that we're speaking about today. So getting right into our Plot of Fresh mini grant program, right? We're just taking that line directly from the larger Nourishing Newark grant. So the goal of this project is to expand the production of fresh and healthy foods in Newark, New Jersey through community gardens and farms. The way that we're doing that is by providing funding directly to gardeners and farmers to be able to set up or expand infrastructure at existing gardens. There's about $32,000 that will be awarded through this grant program. And for this grants will be available up to $5,000. Right, so $32,000 is the pot that we're working with overall. Grants are going to be up to $5,000 that you can apply for. We're assuming that there won't be too many $5,000 grants because that will exhaust the pot pretty quickly. So you imagine probably around 1 or 2 $5,000 grants. The majority of the grants we assume will be around the $1,000 to $3,000 range, but that all depends on interest in the program, how many folks apply. We want to give out the entire $32,000, right? So we are encouraging as many people to apply as possible. We have a few funding categories that folks can apply for, but I just want to note that this grant program is not for to get money to improve single privately owned property, right? This is for gardens and farms that are open to the public, open to the community, that anybody can go to get fresh food or to experiencing programming that's connecting them with food or gardening education. So there are 3 main categories that folks can apply to. The first is the seedling grant. So these are for projects that are looking to establish new community gardens or farms that are not currently in existence. Our second category are blooming grants. So these are for projects that seek to expand infrastructure at existing community gardens or farms, right? So if you had your farm for a year, a couple years, this is the category for you, the blooming grants, to expand the work that you're already doing. Seedling grants are for, right, to get some funds to help you start up that project. And then finally, we have connection grants. So these are grants that are meant to, or grant funding that is meant to provide funds for folks who are looking to do programming or site activations at gardens or farms that are already existing. Right, so we've got 3 categories. 1 for projects that look to or start new gardens or farms. 2 for projects that look to expand existing gardens or farms, or 3 for projects that look to connect residents in Newark with the work that is happening at existing gardens or farms. Here's just a timeline for the program. We opened back up in November. We had an info session on November 14th. Now we're at our second info session. We may schedule subsequent info sessions if we see some more interest and folks are asking some more questions. Right now, our applications are scheduled to close on January 6th at 5 p.m. And then our review period is supposed to start in January. We're putting together a review committee with a few folks in some local organizations that have some gardening focus, community development focus. And then our plan is in February or March, ideally the beginning of March, if we do make it into March, to make the award announcements with the plan for people to actually begin implementing their projects and for money to be distributed throughout the months of March and August. So that timeline is actually set forth by the Larger Nourishing Newark grant. Essentially, we have to give out all the funds for this program by August 2023. So that's where that comes from, right? So we're looking for folks who are ready to start projects pretty quickly in the new year, starting in March, right? Can get all the folks who they need together in order to, identify the garden site, figure out, what type of program or who your partners are, right? So really between March and August is when the bulk of the work is going to be happening for your project proposal. And then in September, we just ask for final reports, right? So tell us what you did over the course of the year or the course of the few months. What were your successes? What were some areas for growth? How can we learn from this project in order to make improvements for any additional mini grant programs that we may be rolling out in subsequent years? And then here are the application components. Our goal with this grant mini grant program is to make the application as simple as possible. If folks did apply to the Larger Nourishing Newark grant, we know that that was a very, very, very long application. I do want to let folks know that if you have materials from the Larger Nourishing Newark grant that you used, but you were not awarded funds from the Nourishing Newark grant, you can use those same materials when you're applying for our program. You do not need to create a whole new or unique application, right? Obviously, the Larger Nourishing Newark grant was a lot larger of a pot of money to apply to. Right, but if there are specific components of the project that you think will make sense to apply to that mini grant program, I definitely encourage you to use those same materials and just submit them to us. And I will also pop over to our website so folks can see the application live. But the major components are first a cover sheet, which is really asking you to give some very simple information about your project, right? Who is the person applying? Are they affiliated with the organization? What is the garden site that they're working with? We ask for a brief summary that we mostly use for advertising, right? So if you were to give a few sentence description of your project that we can put on social media and things like that, how would you describe your project very quickly? And then finally, what are the dates of implementation, right? When are you planning to start the project? And then when are you going to be finished with the project? Making sure that that's between, that's our type right there. It should be between March and August of 2023. I do hear somebody's audio, so I'm just gonna try to mute folks real quick in just a sec. All right, moving on to the next section of the application, we have the proposal narrative. So this is really the bulk of the application. We give folks up to 500 words for each of these components, but we are not requiring you to write 500 words for each of these components, right? Really, it's however much information you think you need to give us, to the grant committee, in order to really understand the fullness of your project and really what impacts you're looking to make by implementing your project, right? So we're asking for a project overview. Essentially, what are your broad goals? We're asking for a background, right? What are you looking to address? What are the needs that you're identifying in your area that you think this project is serving? We ask for a project timeline and work plan, right? What are those major milestones of the project? What are the major activities that are going to happen from beginning to end? We ask for a capacity and readiness plan, right? So essentially, who are the folks involved in your project? Why are those folks particularly qualified to implement the project as you described, right? If you're affiliated with the organization, what's some past work your organization has done to demonstrate that you can take on this project? Or if you're applying as an individual, right, what are your own personal backgrounds, projects, training that makes it so that, us as a grant committee will understand that you actually can undertake the project that you are proposing. And then finally, we ask for outreach plan, right? This project is about connecting as many Newarkers as possible to fresh, healthy foods. So we're asking you in the proposal, what is your plan to connect people, right? What is your plan to let people know about your project as widely as possible, right? All these different components in the proposal narrative should be 500 words maximum. And again, you do not have to write the entire 500 words. It's just as much as you think we need to know in order to fully understand your projects. We asked for some information around your target population, right? Which area of Newark are you working in? Who are the people who you're attempting to impact with this project, right? What are the conditions in the area that you're working in that you're working to improve? And then finally, we have a section for attachments. Our only required attachment for this proposal is a budget, right? You're asking for money. What are the things that you're spending money on, right? Mostly this should align likely with your project work plan, right? So if you say, for example, that you're going to build a garden, right? You have to break out what are the different components of the garden that you're going to be using funds for, right? Are you going to be purchasing soil? Are you going to be purchasing lumber for raised beds? Are you going to be purchasing tools, right? If you're looking at the programming category, are you going to be purchasing materials? Are you going to be purchasing food, right? Things of that nature are going to be in your budget. And then on our website, we do have a budget template that folks can use. But again, right, if you have a budget template that you're comfortable with, if you have a template that you submitted to the larger Nourishing North proposal, we're not asking you to rework in order to fit our template, right? Submit what you have. There are just a few things that we ask that budget include, which is on the application and which I will show when we go through the live website. And then finally, this is not required, but encouraged. If there are any letters of support that you have for your project, right, other partner organizations who you're going to be working with, whether that be, right, if you are doing programming, is it the person in that garden? Are there other local organizations that you attempt to partner with to connect to residents or to distribute food from the garden, for example? Any schematics, so particularly if you're interested in the seedling grants, starting a new garden, right? Do you have a plan for your garden? Do you have a design for the garden, right? It would be really great to submit that to the grant proposal so that the committee can see, right? You're serious about starting this garden, you have ideas, and you have a real understanding of what it takes to get from the idea phase, the conceptualization phase, to the operationalization phase. Right, and any other materials that you think will go along with your proposal, we encourage you to submit them in the attachments section. And then this is just for questions. I will go through the application. I'll take a break in case folks have any questions. But this is the email that you should be working with if you have any questions, grants@citybloom.org. A few of us at the organization have access to that email address. So grants@citybloom.org should be where you direct all your inquiries to. If after this info session, you want to ask any particular questions about either grant program, right? Either the Plot of Fresh grant program, or earlier somebody was asking about the School Garden Grant Program, right? You can also submit questions about the School Garden Grant Program to that grants@citybloom.org. We'll filter it out to the right person and we'll make sure your question gets answered. And if folks have any questions for me in particular, I also include my email address and my phone number there. I'll share this again, but I do want to take a look at the application just so that folks can see what it looks like. Let me just get a sec while I pop over to a different screen. All right, so this is our website. Our web address is citybloom.org. When you log in, you'll see this beautiful home screen with Natasha, our new executive director. If you want to learn more about her, please feel free to check out her bio. Natasha's great. Learn more about her, and there'll definitely be an opportunity for folks to meet her in the future. But what we're looking for, right, if you look at the top bar here, we have a tab that is mini grant programs. For this opportunity that's looking at community gardens and urban farms, you're going to go to the Plot of Fresh Community Garden Mini Grant. Right, we do have a mini grant program that's focused on supporting school gardens. So if you're not working in a school garden, right, you will be in this Plot of Fresh Community Garden mini grant program. We navigate to that section of the website. There'll be some of the information I just covered, speaking about the Nourishing North program, give you some more background about, why is the Conservancy starting this program, to support gardeners, how much grant funding is available, the grant categories, everything I just went over. We do have some information about eligibility, which I did not go over. So like I mentioned, individuals are able to apply without affiliation with the organization, right? You just need to make sure that you demonstrate in your application that you are able to manage the funds of the project, right? And that we won't have to come tracking you down as we're doing our own reporting back to the city of Newark. Right, but then other organizations and entities are also able to apply. So whether it be community organizations or civic organizations, neighborhood or block associations, faith-based organizations, committees or groups, and like I said, individuals also. Here's that grant timeline again. And then really here is the application itself on that same page, right? So we got some applicant information. Who is the person who's applying? Are they affiliated with the organization? What is their role if affiliated with the organization? Contact information. We need to know the garden site name, the site of the address, who is the owner of that site, right? So if you are not the owner of that garden site, you need to make sure that you put who owns that site and make sure that you speak to them beforehand to make sure that they know that you are submitting a proposal to either, mostly, if you're not the garden site owner, I assume you'll be applying to get funding to do programming at that site, right? So in that case, we want to make sure that the garden site owner knows that you are applying for funds to do programming at that garden site. Right, so just make sure that's all squared away. We ask you what type of applicant are you, which is your funding category, your request, that summary that we can use in promotional materials, and the start and end date. And then again, here is just the proposal narratives, right? So like I said, everything is up to 500 words. These are some guiding questions that we have, right? You're not required to answer every single question. We do ask that you look to the particular grant category that you're applying to, right? So for the seedling grants, we have some particular questions for you to think about. For the blooming grants, we have some particular questions, and so on and so forth. Project background, right? How did the idea for this project come about? Why are you interested in starting this in that particular area? How is it related to any previous work that has been done in that area as it relates to food insecurity or fresh food access? Your project timeline, capacity and readiness, and then finally outreach. Section 3, right, this is just a review from what I just spoke about. Your target population, which ward of Newark are you going to be located in? Is your project taking place within any of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority's identified food deserts? We have a link on here that will take you to a map from the NJEDA. All you have to do is pop in the address to that garden site, and it will tell you, right, whether or not the site that you're working in is actually within the NJEDA identified food desert map. It is not required for your project to be in one of those identified food deserts, but as a part of our reporting, as a part of measuring our impact of the program and seeing which residents, which communities in Newark are being impacted by these mini grant projects, right? We just want to know a little bit more information about the particular area. And then this is just a section for attachments, right? So here we have a button where you can download a budget template and then fill this in. Or like I said, you can provide a budget template that you're already comfortable with, one that you've already submitted, and obviously just make the tweaks as it is related to your project, right? The only thing that we ask that you include in the budget is, right, definitely the name of your project, the recipient organization, whether it be an organization or individual, or a group of organizations if folks go that route, the start and end dates, right? And then line by line, what are the different supplies and materials that are associated with each aspect of your project, right? Which will really depend on, are you establishing a garden, are you expanding a garden, or are you doing programming at a garden, right? The point is to keep this pretty broad. We want to encourage folks to have a variety of ideas for projects, right? We really don't want the application to limit or strain the ideas that people have. Mostly the limiting factor is the amount of funds that we have available to distribute out with the program. And then here's a space to upload any additional supplementary materials that you think the grant review committee should see as we are evaluating your application. And then you just submit it and you'll get a note about submissions. So I will pop back over to my information. And if folks have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves now and ask. If you have questions in the chat, I actually found the chat function so you can pop them in there too. But I invite you all to ask any questions about the program so far. I see Ajoa's hand up.
Yeah, Adjoa. Good evening. Thank you so much for this. I have a couple of questions. I don't plan on applying this time, and hopefully next year or in the future I'll be able to apply. I'm a new resident of New Jersey, so I don't want to get too started. But I'm actually a resident in Montclair, but I do work in Newark. I co-manage a farm in Newark, and I also worked on a project with the city of Newark for a food access map. Is this only for residents of Newark, or are people who are working in the Newark area able to apply?
So this is for projects that are being implemented in Newark, right? So you don't have to be a Newark resident to apply. It's just the garden site that you're working in, establishing or connecting programming in has to be within Newark.
Sure, great, that makes sense. And I know you're looking to see the kind of management and leadership people have. Is there a certain amount of years that you look for when it comes to a candidate of this grant, or?
No, really, we're evaluating each application as it comes in, right? So we just need to make sure, right? We'll have a rubric for the application, but on the rubric won't be, oh, somebody needs 5 years management experience, right? Or they need 10 years managing a team, for example, right? We're really just looking to see, so for example, right, if it's somebody who has managed a team for 1 year or 2 years, right? Are there other people that they're bringing on to make sure that the project can be implemented in its fullness, ideally without any breaks in the project, right? Is there a plan if applying with the organization, right? If somebody leaves or steps down, right? Is there a team behind them that can continue to implement this project to completion? So really that's what we're looking for. Nothing right concrete, just the ability to complete the project as outlined in the proposal.
Great, thank you so much, Malcolm.
Yeah, no problem. Dean, I see your hand.
Yes. Are you able to start the application and save it and come back to it, or do you have to complete it in one sitting?
You have to complete it in one sitting, but
Okay.
the application is available online. So if you want to like draft up your responses in another document, you can just copy and paste right into the application.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? If not, no. Right,
I do have another question, Malcolm.
Yeah,
Well, you don't have to be a 501c3 in order to apply for the grant, right?
Nope. So individuals can apply, also other organizations that are not 501c3s.
Okay.
We kept it pretty open.
And how about if you're functioning in more than one garden space? Like,
For programming, you're thinking
yeah, for
about?
programming, because it's basically, I mean, I have a garden space, but I want to be able to do programming in multiple gardens. And one of the things I want to be able to do is teach people to support other gardens that are already out there. So I'll be functioning really teaching out of 2 or 3 gardens, but I want people to be able to, so I'll just kind of word that in my schematics and how the program is going to be laid out.
That sounds like an appropriate project to me for this grant opportunity.
Okay.
I would just say in the application, you can put like semicolons if it's at different garden sites where it says garden site owner, just say owner 1, semicolon, owner 2, semicolon, just so that we know what are all the different spaces and then who are the people who are affiliated with all of them.
Okay. Okay. And add those addresses as well.
That's
right? Or just one, I would just add one address. And then within the description of how I want to lay out the program, I'll put all of the other.
Yes,
in there
I think that would probably make the most sense for clarity.
Yeah.
If we have any further questions, then we'll definitely make sure to reach out to people for any clarifying information that we need. Adjoa, was your hand up for before, or do you have another question?
I actually have another question. And Dina, by the way, I just sent you a private message. I would love to connect with you privately.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I see it. Thank you.
Yes. My question is so once someone receives the grants, do you require updates on what's going on in the plot? How does that look like? Are we sending you videos, or are there check-ins? How does that look like?
Yeah, so right now, as we have it designed, our main check-in is going to be that final report, right? So just report of all that has happened over the course of the project to make sure that you actually, use the funds as you said that you would. We're still figuring out what some of the specifics will look like. Like, we know that some folks are interested in like cohort grants, right? Where, for example, all the applicants who may be funded through this project, right? We all come together and say, hey, here are all the projects that are happening throughout the city. How can we support each other? How can we update each other as our projects are going on? So some of that is still being worked out, but there will definitely be the final report that will be due. But part of it is that we want to make sure that we're not creating so much additional work for folks to get bogged down with, especially since we're only having implementation through May to August, right? There are not that many opportunities for check-in that won't create a whole lot of additional paperwork. So we'll probably ask that we'll probably have a hashtag or something that we'll organize, right? So as you're doing your different activities, what is the hashtag that you'll have? There may be some check-ins because the folks from the city of Newark will also be asking us about the course of our project, right? So there may be some informal check-ins with individual mini grant recipients on that end, but I want to imagine it will be anything that's super extensive.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, Tashawn, I see your hand.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. First question is, are there any areas of particular consideration or prioritization that you're looking for among the applicants? Like, are you giving special consideration to partnerships or anything of that nature?
Nothing that we've predetermined so far.
Yeah.
We're really looking to see, who are the people applying. We really want to make sure that this grant opportunity molds to the people who are interested in applying to it. So as much as possible, right, we want to make sure that we have standards in terms of, like, is somebody able to actually complete the project? Are people able to fiscally manage the project?
Right.
But aside from that, we're really looking for creativity. We want folks who, may not have access to traditional larger grant opportunities to be able to apply to this program and get funding for projects that may have traditionally gone unfunded or underfunded.
Awesome. And the second question, and it's just a random curiosity, but are you requiring for programming in particular, are you requiring applicants to have like rain dates?
That's not something that we've thought about, but like as a program director at the Conservancy, I'll say yeah. Right. I'm not sure if in the application, right, we may not be, or once we're reviewing applications, we may not be looking for you to say, hey, I'm going to have a program on this date, right? You may say, I plan to have 5 programs over the course of that May to August period, for example.
Right.
Right. For, the sake of good program management, we would definitely encourage you to have rain dates and things, but the specificity to that level, I don't think is necessary in the application itself.
Got it. Thank you.
Dina, is your hand still up or did you have another question? Okay.
No, I'll lower. Where's the button? Okay.
Anybody else with questions? So like I said, we have this email, grants@citybloom.org. If folks have any questions after this session, we will be posting this recording. Likely it will show up on the website under that mini grants program tab. We'll probably have another side tab that's like resources and information where we will have this info session. And likely as we're getting more information, as folks are completing their projects, we'll probably have a gallery of photos, for example. We'll probably have a description of all the projects that are being funded by this program. But definitely do not hesitate to reach out. I encourage you all to apply and to share this program widely. Right, this is the first year that we're doing it. I would say, right, ideally, this is something that we will be able to continue into the future, right? We know that not enough gardens are getting enough access to funding for, right, what we need in order to do programming, in order to establish infrastructure. So say this is year 1. Ideally, this is successful. If we can demonstrate success, right, hopefully we can go back and then, right, raise some more money so that we can have another mini grant program to really be able to establish and create that foundation for the gardens in Newark that have been operating for a long time without a lot of maintained support. So definitely spread this opportunity. If you know folks who are interested in connecting with school gardens, definitely tell them to check out our website and check out the school garden mini grant application, which is supporting, I'm not sure what the awards are up to, right? But the plan for that is to have folks connecting with schools and school children at probably on-site school garden spaces, right? So if this opportunity doesn't work for you, definitely check out that opportunity and check out more opportunities that we'll have at the Conservancy in the future. If there are no other questions, I definitely encourage you all to follow us on social media. That'll probably be the quickest way to get updates. On Instagram, we're at CityBloom87. On Facebook, we're Greater Newark Conservancy. Our website is citybloom.org. I encourage you all to sign up for our newsletter for information about this grant opportunity and any future events or activities or activations that we'll be having at the Conservancy. And if there are no other questions, I'll stay on for a little bit. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you all have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. Very informative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the information. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Quick question, not related to the grant, but more so wanting to
Let me
connect.
record it really quickly.
Sure.